Now, as for Trump's message, it has to be economically based. How to improve the financial situation for hardworking Americans. All of his domestic policies have to revolve around that theme. He has to connect them in his address tomorrow. For example, if you're going to crack down on border security, say why. Explain how that will help Americans make a better living. If you're going to knock out a bunch of environmental regulations, specifically say how that will improve the country. It will not be enough for Donald Trump just to proclaim. He will have to explain. Past, there have been some very interesting statements made by new presidents. Here you go.
It's not my intention to do away with government. It is rather to make it work. Work with us, not over us. To stand by our side, not ride on our back.
The enemies of liberty in our country should make no mistake. America remains engaged in the world by history and by choice, shaping a balance of power that favors freedom.
Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
Now, the sad fact is, no matter what Donald Trump says tomorrow in his address, it will not be accepted by those who despise him. But again, he can overcome that opposition if he talks directly to the folks, and if he emerges as their champion through policy success. And that's a memo. Now for the top story reaction, joining us from Washington, David Azarad from the Heritage Foundation, and from Los Angeles, presidential historian John Meacham, author of the book Destiny and Power, The American Odyssey of George Herbert Walker Bush. Okay, John, we'll tell everybody that President Bush the elder remains in the hospital. Say he's stabilized after his bout with pneumonia, and everybody is wishing and praying for him, wishing him well. Great man, I think. Great man in many, many different ways. Now, Donald Trump.
One piece of good news was that when Jim Baker went to see the Bushes yesterday, he announced that he was going to bring a thermos of martinis tonight.
Yeah, that'll
really
liven
push
things
ahead,
up in the ICU unit. But Donald Trump steps into this job as the 45th president, and I've looked at this thing, and there was rancor with Adams and Jefferson, and we all know throughout history that there was, but nothing like this because of the internet. The internet has changed everything. The hatred factor is through the roof. So I'm trying to basically bring it down a little. What say you?
I agree. I have two thoughts for what I would hope the president-elect will do tomorrow as he's president. One goes slightly contrary, at least at first, to your point. I would say, because he'll have President Carter, President Bush, President Clinton, Secretary Clinton, President Obama there. I think it would be a graceful note, a gracious note, to allude to all of them and talk about how we've had a farmer from Plains and a kid from Arkansas and a guy from West Texas and a kid from Hawaii who have risen in the American story, and that we honor them for their service. But now it is about the people and not just the presidents. And pivoting that way, I think by alluding to the establishment against which he ran so successfully, I think he'll get points for grace. I think he'll get points for reaching out. I think he would reassure people like me, frankly, who do believe that the conventions of politics have a reason. But then that pivot has to be, I'm going to be the deliverable president. Judge me on what I do. We're here to make things happen for you, not just for the people.
Well, I think that's wise. I mean, he's generous in the beginning to all the previous presidents, and then he says, look, I'm in business to help you out, like Andrew Jackson did way back then. Mr. Azarad, what would your tack be in the address tomorrow?
I agree with you, Bill, first of all, that he's not going to win over his critics with this speech. He hasn't even been sworn in, and Trump derangement syndrome has already set in amongst the chattering classes and the social justice warriors, so they're kind of a lost cause. I think what he has to do, what he will do, is to hammer away at the core promise of his campaign, which is he will have the only interest of the American people in his heart, that he will tirelessly champion the well-being of the forgotten men and women of this country. And the way to do that is to return to the themes that propelled him to the presidency, to talk about the importance of borders, about the importance of the national interest, about putting America first when it comes to immigration, to trade, to foreign policy. He's going to be giving a State of the Union address next month. That's the time to go into the details. For the time being, I would stick to the core promise of his campaign, which is what got him elected.
Okay, but I think that he has to do a why behind the what, because he's been demonized so badly that people are going to say, oh, you just want to punish Mexicans on the border, or you just want to make the world, the planet dirty again. You know, that could be an opposition slogan, make the planet dirty again. So he's got to say, look, this is why I'm doing things, John. I agree that you don't going to get into micro policy on a State of the Union. It's 20 minutes. You just want to, you know, deliver a powerful address. But he's got to kind of give it to his critics a little bit.
He does, and he will. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. Politicians run on incentives that have worked in the past, right? It's why political reform is so hard, because incumbents think that any system that elected them is just fine and has great wisdom. He has consistently talked about these themes, sometimes in a scattershot way, but that's part of his appeal. He's, you know, interestingly, his vernacular, as reality television, as driven as it sometimes is, obviously resonated with people.
Sure, they do
not believe in the smooth packaging anymore.
Right, they understood what he's talking about.
Yeah, but
go ahead, Mr. President.
I would push back gently against what the two of you are saying. An inaugural address is not the time to go after your critics. It's not the time to punish your enemies. If to return to the language he used when he got the nomination at the convention, focus on America as a nation of dreamers, believers, and strivers. Leave out the part about the fact that it's led by a group of cynics, critics, and censors. Now is not the time to go after the elites, the media, and cronies. I think you want an uplifting, unifying message for the nation.
All right, we'll see what we get. Gentlemen, thanks very much. We appreciate it. Next on the rundown, we'll take you to the southern border, where preparations are underway for the big Trump crackdown. Then later, Bernie Goldberg not real happy with Congressman John Lewis. Those reports after these messages as the factor continues all across the USA and all around the world.
Question of sequencing.
A word is executive orders on the border and immigration may be issued in the next few days. Joining us now from Washington, the president of the National Border Patrol Council, Brandon Judd. So you represent more than 1,600 Border Patrol agents. What changes are you guys expecting on the southern border?
Well, the first off, I want you to understand that there's a buzz that we've never seen before in the Border Patrol, and of those agents, we feel we now have a president that we can trust and that has the political will to finally secure the border, and we expect to see an awful lot of policies that have undermined border security change in the near future.
Well, get specific for me.
Okay, so what we have right now that has drawn vast numbers of people from other countries to come to the United States is what we call the catch and release program. The vast majority of all those individuals that cross the border illegally that we arrest, we just turn around and release. In other words, we walk them right out our door, give them, in some cases, give them a bus ticket to Atlanta, Boston, New York, and there's no consequences. In essence, what we're doing is we're rewarding them for breaking our law.
How did that ever happen, though? How did that catch and release happen?
That was an Obama policy. That was the administration's policy. They forced us to, in essence, stop enforcing the laws. And of course, when we stop enforcing the laws, that word spreads. And most people think that this is just Mexico. These are just people from Mexico that we're arresting. And that's as far from the truth as there is. We arrest people from the Middle East. We arrest people from South America. We arrest people from countries in the Ukraine. And so what the message that we have sent is that if you come here and you break our laws, we're going to let you go and you're going to be able to stay in the United States. So let me get this straight, though. If you are a migrant and you come across the border and your guys catch them, if you say to the Border Patrol, I need asylum, I'm here for political, those are the magic words, right? Those are the magic words, yes.
Okay. So I'm here to apply for asylum. Then you process you take them to a place, you process them, and then you are mandated to let them go under President Obama's policies? You have to let them go?
Yes, we do have to let them go, and oftentimes we walk them right out our front door, sometimes to a church, sometimes to a bus station, but we walk them right out our front door.
And so then they're in the wind then. Now they get, but you tell them they have to come back for a hearing, right?
We tell them that in the future we will send them a letter that will give them a hearing date, but unfortunately the vast majority of these individuals never show up for
Do they give you addresses?
They have to give us addresses.
They have to give you an address. So everybody knows this, right? Coming in from Mexico, all the coyotes, those are the people smugglers. They tell them, look, if you get in there and you're caught by the Border Patrol, you tell them you want asylum, you give them an address where your uncle lives or something, and bang, you're in. You know, I don't think Americans understood how bad or how lenient, maybe that's a better word, that policy was. So you expect Trump to stop that cold?
Yes, I do. President Trump's meteoric rise was based upon his border security stance. He spoke to the American people. He spoke to an ignored segment of the American public, and that public responded on November 8th.
Yes,
right,
so you expect him to stop, catch, and release cold. What about the border wall?
So the border wall is something that is extremely important. We're not talking about a border wall from California down to Texas. We're talking about a border wall in strategic locations, which will then allow us to dictate where illegal immigration takes place or illegal contraband. Because again, we don't just arrest illegal aliens. We seize vast amounts of drugs that come across the border, and we want to dictate where they cross. And with border walls, we're able to dictate where they cross, and it allows us to be as successful as possible.
All right, so you're going to funnel. Do you know, does the Border Patrol have a chart that says, look, this is where we need the big wall? Do you have that already drawn up?
They're working on that as we speak. It hasn't been finalized, but that is being worked on.
All right, and do you believe President Trump will build that?
I do believe that yes, he is going to build the wall, and I do believe that the walls in strategic locations will allow us to be successful, and I believe that under this administration, I believe that we will secure the border.
All right. Well, we shall see, Mr. Judd, and we appreciate you appearing with us tonight. Directly ahead, California pulls back on allowing health insurance for illegal aliens. Is that because of Donald Trump? And later, Bernie Goldberg scolding Congressman John Lewis. Up ahead. Personal story segment tonight. Tomorrow morning at about 8:30 a.m., Donald Trump, Mike Pence, and their families will have a private prayer service. Joining us now from Washington is a man who will sermonize during the service, Robert Jeffers, who's a senior pastor at the First Baptist Church in Dallas. So what are you going to say, Pastor?
Well, I'm not going to lecture the new president. I want to encourage him, and so I'm going to compare him to another great leader God chose 2,500 years ago to restore the nation of Israel. And it's interesting, Bill, God didn't choose a politician or a priest. He chose a builder named Nehemiah. And interestingly, he told Nehemiah to build a giant wall around Jerusalem to protect the citizens. And so I'm going to use Nehemiah's story as an example of why God blesses leaders, and I want it to be a tremendous encouragement to our great new president and vice president.
All right. For those who are not Bible literate, Nehemiah was a regular guy, okay?
That's right.
And this is an Old Testament story.
That's right.
And so God appeared to him and wanted him to do what? What was the end game for Nehemiah?
Well, the country had been in bondage for years in Babylon. The infrastructure was in shambles. And then God said to Nehemiah, the first step to rebuilding the nation is to secure the nation with a border to keep the enemies out.
To keep the Babylonians out and the other people who were invading.
The Ammonites and the Hittites. Now, I don't think
I
he
hate
said
those Hittites. Those Hittites were really out of control.
Yeah, and make the Hittites pay for the wall. I don't think he said that, but maybe he should have.
All right, so you're gonna tell this story to the president and vice president. They'll still be elect when you get them, but and what do you want them to take away from it?
Well, you know, Nehemiah had his share of critics during his day who were heckling him and hounding him, spreading rumors about him. They were kind of like the mainstream media of today. Nehemiah ignored them. The country went through an economic recession, terrorist attacks. Nehemiah kept plowing forward. And I see those qualities in Donald Trump. He is not going to stop for his critics. He's not going to slow down. He's going to do what he thinks is best for this country. And that's why I support him for president.
So you're going to encourage him at the same time you're enlightening him about the Old Testament. You're going to encourage him.
Well, I want to encourage him. I can't stand these pastors who use their minutes before a president to give a lecture and to chastise them. I don't think that's my role. And by the way, Donald Trump is my friend, so I do want to encourage him. And, you know, people who didn't vote for Trump or Pence, you know, I think tomorrow is a time for us to begin to pray for him because, Bill, if Trump wins, America wins.
Yeah, well, he needs some prayers because his enemies are legion. Now,
Excellent.
The final question is that you know Donald Trump pretty well. He's not a religious man per se. He's a secular man. Does that enter into your thinking at all? Would you like him to be a little more overtly religious?
Look, Donald Trump and I have had many discussions about faith, and I say this, Mr. Trump's faith is very important to him, but it's very personal with him. But I do think what is ironic, Bill, is that a secular billionaire from New York has won more evangelical votes than any candidate in history by a wider margin.
And you know why that is, though, right?
Yes. Yes, because I think evangelicals want a strong leader, but they also appreciate the fact that Trump, unlike the left, does not demonize them for their beliefs.
That's one reason, but the Supreme Court selection, I think, was what the evangelicals voted on this
It was, Bill. And by the way, I can tell you from talking to Mr. Trump just a couple of weeks ago, he is moving forward and fulfilling that promise on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's going to be
and the other
big.
promises he made.
All right, Pastor. Good luck tomorrow. Say hello to everybody from me. All right?
I will.
And thanks for introducing the audience to Nehemiah.
Yes. I'm glad to.
We come right back. Bernie Goldberg on John Lewis. That could get harsh. Then Waters talking to folks in Washington, D.C.
Is there anything Trump can do to make you hate him a little bit less?
Resign immediately.
Factor's coming right back.
The O'Reilly Factor, the #1 cable news show for 16 years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly. In the Weekdays of Bernie segment tonight, a column by Mr. Goldberg entitled Even Heroes Should Be Held Accountable. It's about the conduct of Congressman John Lewis, who Bernie covered while a correspondent for CBS News. Mr. Goldberg joins us now from Miami. So tell us first about your history with Lewis.
Well, I was doing the story for the CBS Evening News on one of the anniversaries, I don't remember which one, of the march in Selma, Alabama. And I met John Lewis in Atlanta. He was gracious, he was dignified, and I liked him. He is a genuine American hero who made America a better place, not just for black people, but for all of us. But as I said, and as you alluded to in the lead-in, even heroes need to be held accountable.
So what do you think Mr. Lewis's motive has been over the last 20 years when he's excoriated every single Republican running for president, compared, I think, McCain to George Wallace, Romney was going to be throwing blacks out into the street, and now we have this boycott of Donald Trump. What is Lewis's motive?
I think he believes, and I'm pretty sure his supporters believe, that John Lewis is a man of principle who acts almost exclusively on principle. So his motives would be, it's a principled response to what he considers the illegitimacy of Donald Trump. He also considered George Bush illegitimate. As you just mentioned, he compared John McCain, when he was running for president, to George Wallace. He said Mitt Romney would take us back, or at least suggested he would take us back to the bad old days of segregation. And I think he believes all of these things are based on principle. But John Lewis is also something besides an icon, besides a civil rights icon. He's also a hyper-partisan liberal Democrat, and he doesn't always deal with principle. When you try to delegitimize so many different kinds of Republicans, that's political. And when John Lewis goes into the political arena, he can be criticized in a political way. What bothers me, Bill, what bothers me more than John Lewis, who I think is a good man, what bothers me is that his many supporters think that because of his biography, because of what he went through, because he got his head handed to him in Selma, Alabama in 1965, that he's somehow above reproach, beyond reproach, that you can't criticize him. If you do, you're suspect at best or you're a racist at worst. And I'm saying he's also a politician. And when he acts that way, he's allowed to be criticized.
Well, I think his motive is that he is a one-party guy, that he doesn't want two parties in this country, and that he says, if it's not my way, it's the highway. And
but he
so we
believes,
don't, but he doesn't respect anybody. He doesn't respect anybody on the other team. No one.
Right.
They're all bad.
But here's why I think that's the case. I think you're right. But here's why I think that's the case. He has supporters in the liberal media and in liberal intellectual circles who have practically said, and in some cases literally said, you cannot criticize
they've inoculated
John Lewis.
him to criticism because of his heroism in the civil rights years. But I'm not interested in them. I'm interested in him. And
yes, but I was about to say that affects his thinking. He sees himself as the special kind of person he is, but he's not just a man of principle. He's also a man of politics.
But I don't understand where the principle is if every single Republican is evil. Where's the principle of that?
Oh, we're not saying he's right. We're saying that's what he believes.
But you see, he's being portrayed as a principled man. And yes. My question is very simple because, as you know, I am a simple man. Where's the principle in demonizing every single person who disagrees with you? Where is the principle in that?
I'm not defending him. I want to make this clear. Imagine that you walked over the Edmund Pettus Bridge in March of 1965, and a bunch of racist state troopers, Alabama state troopers, beat you senseless. One of them hit you over the head and cracks your skull. You think, I know this sounds ridiculous, but you think everything harkens back to the bad old days. So you see Donald Trump, who tried to delegitimize Barack Obama, so John Lewis, tries to delegitimize Donald Trump.
Right.
He sees George Bush, who he thought wasn't really elected.
Right.
And same with John McCain. In the case of John McCain and Mitt Romney, it's beyond ridiculous. This isn't principle.
Absolutely.
This is ugly political commentary.
Right. All right, Bernie, we appreciate it. Go to BernardGoldberg.com, read Bernie's column, Waters on Deck. He's running around D.C., and he has some very interesting interviews for us. Waters is next. Back at the book segment tonight, Waters World. There are many, many, many things going on in Washington this evening, and some of them have to do with hatred, angst. So we sent Waters down there to catch some of the flavor. Roll it.
What's with all the hate against Donald Trump?
We've not taken the time to stop and really evaluate the reason behind him winning.
Isn't it because he won the Electoral College?
I think I hear my mother calling me.
I think they need to give him a chance.
Give peace a chance.
Yeah, that too.
And I believe that you should support the United States president despite your political beliefs.
Why is everybody hating on Donald Trump?
They believe he's a racist. They think he's going to cause war.
Okay, let's just relax for a second.
Aren't you going to give the guy a fair shake?
No, not really.
No?
I would actually rather walk into the street than talk to you.
Okay.
What a woman.
Why does everybody hate Donald Trump so much?
I don't hate him. I think he's probably doesn't use his words very well.
Do you hate Donald Trump?
I don't. Hate is a strong word. I don't really hate Donald Trump.
I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Leave me alone.
Do you hate Donald Trump?
I don't hate anyone.
Even if they're boycotting the inauguration or saying nasty things about the president-elect?
Well, isn't this a free country? Some people are very frustrated and some people are very happy. It's the way it is. It's democracy.
Trump is your president, too.
I don't feel it.
Don't you want to just release all that hatred from your heart and love instead?
Absolutely.
So let's try it. Breathe out. Feel better?
Not really.
Give peace a chance.
All right, will do.
Find it in your heart.
Thank you.
I can feel it beating right here.
Yeah.
It's a big heart.
It is.
Let that heart beat.
Okay, great.
There's love in there.
What is wrong with you?
Despite hatred in some places, the University of Talladega marching band just arrived in D.C. on buses from Alabama, and the students are incredibly excited to perform at tomorrow's inauguration. A lot of hate swirling around this inauguration, but the band here, what do they represent?
You know, we've gone through a lot to be here. You know, from threats to folks trying to politicize this, telling us that we shouldn't be here. These young people are American citizens.
So congratulations, you're playing at the inauguration.
Thank you, thank you.
How do you feel?
I'm pretty excited. I've never been to Washington, D.C. before. Pretty excited to be here.
Are you nervous about the performance?
I'm actually really excited. This is my first inaugural parade. I feel like the atmosphere is going to be amazing. I can't wait to go out there and perform and show the world my talent.
Initially, how did you feel when you were going to be playing for the inauguration?
I wasn't too happy about it at first, but everybody deserves a second chance.
What instrument do you play?
Piccolo.
What's that?
Well, okay, if you know what a flute is a long little metal instrument.
I played the flute.
I play trombone at the moment.
All right. How's that go?
Once I got it locked down on it.
You got it down?
Yeah, I got it down.
I play first trumpet.
First trumpet?
First trumpet.
Okay. Don't show off.
I don't know what that means. It's a student experience, and they deserve to be here. And I will have to say that we needed to raise funds to get here. Bill O'Reilly, the O'Reilly Factor, I thank so much.
Good luck out there.
Thank you.
All right. And if you need any help playing the instrument, you call me, okay?
Okay, thank you.
That is Waters from D.C. Nice kids, right?
Yeah, everyone was great. You know, a lot of these kids are from Alabama. They've never been outside the state of Alabama, so to come to D.C. is a huge undertaking.
Did they fly or drive up?
They took a bus 13 hours, and I just caught these guys coming off the bus. They're exhausted, they're hungry, they just want to go to sleep, but they're ready to go for tomorrow.
And they will be marching in the parade with the president and vice president. They're going to march as well. Is it going to rain there tomorrow, Waters? What's the forecast?
We're hearing it may shower from 11 to 12 or 1, which is right when Trump is supposed to swear in. But, you know, who knows what could happen? I don't trust weathermen.
I don't want anybody raining on Talladega College. So the tornadoes got to have, you know, no water on them. So let's try
That's right. I'll hold an umbrella for him. How's that?
Okay, Waters. We will see you tomorrow. I'm coming down right after the program tonight.
Uh-oh.
So,
Are you going to the balls? You're going to be here?
No, I'm not invited. I'm going to hang out in a bar somewhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't invite you either.
Thank you, Waters. Great.
You're
You're
welcome.
fired. Factor tip of the day, we'll be live, as I just mentioned, for the festivities tomorrow night in D.C. And I'll tell you what we're going to do. Tip, moments away. Factor tip of the day, we'll be live tomorrow night. We'll tell you what will happen in a moment. But first, a few items for you. On the Fox Business Network, Strange Inheritance begins its third season tomorrow night at 10, starring Jamie Colby. That show has been very successful. Also this morning in USA Today, this ad was shown to the nation about my upcoming book, Old School, Life in the Sane Lane, out March 28th, and Killing the Rising Sun, the best-selling book of 2016. Flashy ad. We hope it gets our message across. Now, the Mail, Suzanne Young, Fortson, Georgia. Why the to-do about the Democrat Congresspeople boycotting the inauguration? Didn't more than 100 Republicans do the same thing to President Obama? No, they did not, Suzanne. There was no boycott. Whoever told you that is a deceiver. Please note it. Kathy Homewood, Canyon Lake, California.